Cheers. What up, HyperChange? Welcome to an episode of Bros, Brews, and Big Ideas. We're here in Austin, Texas. We've seen Waymos crawling around everywhere. We're just 4 months away from the Tesla Cybercab launching here in the first city across the country. So we thought this would be a dope time to kind of open up a scheme. How do we see the self-driving race playing out? You know, is Tesla going to dominate? Is Waymo a big player? They've teamed up with Uber. Lots to unpack here, especially as hype for Tesla stock. You know, Tesla's kind of relying on a successful Cybercab launch for their whole company right now, essentially, betting the company on autonomy. Elon's called it the most epic year in Tesla history because of this launch. So a lot to dive in on how this rollout happens. Aiden, what's your take from being here in Austin?
I mean, we've been coming to Austin a bunch over the last few years, and we believe it's America's next boomtown. And it's exciting that the robotaxi battle feels like it's happening right here in Austin between Waymo and Tesla. It's been interesting though. Waymo started rolling out in 2017 in Phoenix, and it's been doing a very slow, methodical rollout just to get to this point. And when we were walking for bagels the other day, we saw 2 Waymos on our walk, and the walk was only 15 minutes. So I feel like that was a lot to see 2 Waymos on the street. It feels like seeing Tesla in the early days. Remember when you'd walk around, you'd be like, oh, I see a Tesla, but now there's Teslas everywhere. That's what it kind of feels like with Waymos in these new cities. But when we tried to download the app and use Waymo, you can't use it right now. So I think there's a lot of Waymos around out there, but they're still very much constricting supply. It looks like they did about 4 million rides last year, so they're already, doing a lot of rides, and they're in 5 major cities. I think it's Phoenix, LA, Austin, San Francisco.
Yep. Atlanta and Austin are the 2 that are about to launch, and interestingly enough, through the Uber app. I'm pretty sure. We tried to read in the partnership, and it's a little bit unclear, but it sounds like, I'm not sure if they'll still be the Waymo app, but Uber at least is hyping up this partnership with Waymo for Atlanta and Austin. So you're basically about to integrate the Waymo and Uber services. You can call your Waymo through the Uber app. So that's a super interesting angle of who really has the leverage. Cool to see them team up. And then Dara, the CEO of Uber, has been scheming wait, we should have every autonomous vehicle company on our app. He had this analogy that McDonald's, they do their own delivery, but they also work with Uber Eats and DoorDash. And it's just all about demand and maximizing the utilization of your asset. So if you're Tesla or Waymo, you want to maximize the utilization of your vehicle, Uber gives you a huge avenue to do that.
But it's interesting though, because basically Dara came out the other day and was just yeah, Tesla doesn't want to work with us.
And that's where I was going with this.
Yeah.
But then Elon's basically nah. And which is very Tesla and Elon in the whole situation of them being
well, there was the whole chatter on I feel X the last few weeks of everyone being Tesla should buy Uber, and then people Farzad being Uber is basically worthless and going to zero.
Yeah, Farzad's been Uber's done.
Yeah,
Waymo's done.
Yeah, exactly. So
which I hear where he's coming from.
But the question is, does Waymo need the distribution mode? Because that's essentially why you would buy Uber, is that you have all these people who are already using it. People might not think to download a Waymo, and especially with right now, I think the costs for Waymos are typically higher than Uber costs. So
which I think is a little bit on purpose. We've been scheming on this, but price it at a premium, less people do it. You kind of they've done the slowest slow a turtle rollout in history, Waymo, which I think is smart because you're dabbling with this crazy technology. I also think Waymo is kind of paving the way for Tesla because people see these self-driving cars on the street.
You feel comfortable with it?
The regulation is there. You're comfortable with it. People are already hailing them.
We tried Waymo for the first time together in San Francisco.
And we made a video.
And it was by far the craziest tech experience that I think we've each maybe ever had, or one of the craziest.
Yeah.
Where you get in, you're there's literally no one driving. And still a lot of people have not experienced that. And a lot of people still haven't experienced FSD too. So it's all this technology is still very early. I think the question that a lot of people are oh, it's becoming a commodity, self-driving, look at Waymo, they're already on the road. Is Tesla really going to be that big? Mm-hmm. Is that the scaling. So they did 4 million rides. How many cars? How expensive are those cars? How expensive is the LiDAR? And that's really the edge of the Cybercab, is the ability to produce it at volume and all the data they're collecting.
And that's kind of the thing I've been grappling with Tesla is Elon, I'm pretty sure, is guided that the company is going to go cash flow break even when they start rolling this out. So you're basically going to get Tesla investing all their money. Now they're making some money, but they're going to go into like investment mode to operate this service. Like it's not going to be insanely profitable off the bat.
And they're not selling these cars. Like they're like producing all these cars, and now like they're getting no revenue. They're, like the value of the payback period's long.
Yeah, totally.
So it'll be interesting to see like how that affects the balance sheet and when like it kind of goes like this. But like they're going to be able to like flood the market potentially, right? Like they're going to all of a sudden start producing like tens of thousands of these potentially in 2026. I don't know what the production.
Yeah, well, I think Omid, who works at Tesla, just tweeted out like, well, first of all, we're seeing the Cybercabs come out of Giga Austin, literally like 15 miles from where we are right now.
And is that what's going to
like
be here in
they're driving
Austin?
around?
Like
it hasn't been confirmed, but I really hope that they launch Cybercab instead of like a Model Y because I just feel like that would be doper marketing, and that's like seems cool. And there's so many cool innovations in the Cybercab. Like the panels aren't painted; they're like injected with the mold. So I feel like, well, I guess back to the cash flow kind of thing. I'm trying to play this out of like, when does this become super profitable? Like, do both Waymo and Tesla become super profitable companies in kind of this duopoly? Or is it a price war for a long time until one of them like runs out of cash and then becomes the dominant player? Like, how does that play out? Because I think at first we're going to go into like this cash flow neutral phase. Or first of all, Waymo is probably already losing gazillions of dollars as it is. Like Waymo,
it's got to cost like what, like 150,000 to make a Waymo?
Probably around 150 G's. I mean, you're buying a Jaguar. Maybe they got a deal on it. It's like 60 or 70. But all the equipment, plus you have to have an operating cost for like insurance. Every single car has somebody monitoring it. So there's all this like infrastructure it's not just like the costs are zero. So Waymo's probably losing a ton of money. We asked Grok how much revenue they're doing. 4 million rides, 50, 100 million revenue run rate. Also, I thought interesting data that's been coming out is people are actually like choosing to drive autonomous cars. Like I feel like that is like paying a premium and like loving it. Like when you want your kid to go somewhere, it's like, I feel like this is safer. Like there's not a stranger in the car. Like, I don't know. I feel like Uber, I was thinking about this like just an hour ago and I was like, wait, like Uber used to be so swag. Like you used to call Uber when it was like the bougiest, like you felt fancy when you called Uber. Now when I call Uber, I'm like, fuck. Like especially in low-key Austin, it's like it's smelly, like it's a super shitty car. It's like kind of dirty. Like the drivers
are a little bit
like sometimes
crazy.
suck.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, totally.
I've had a couple crazy things where like the driver got me into a wrong like.
Well, that's where the Waymo and the Tesla can quickly start. Like not only it's a race to the bottom, but it's a premium product. To your point, which is exactly what you're saying. It's a premium offering, and like getting in a Waymo, like I must say, like it has that feeling of early Uber. Like they're playing that kind of like Zen music when you hop in. It's like welcome into your car. You just like feel like you're in the future, and like it's like one of those things that like. Yeah, I want to spend more money on this because it makes me feel good. And like people spend a lot of money on stuff that makes them feel good.
Totally. So I think it's a premium product, which I think is promising for Tesla. The other thing that I think Tesla is going for is they unveiled like that cleaning robot that's like basically an automated vacuum super well that details the car. Like I think that's the kind of thing that's really going to make this work on a mass scale. Like Waymo is like partnering with Uber. Like I feel like not owning the stack is going to be a weakness of Waymo.
The full stack, like the charging too, right? Didn't they have something where you can like roll over and charge it or something like that?
That's true too. Yeah,
like all these things. That's just like you're basically creating like the fully integrated, like which is Tesla's way to run the robotaxi. Which I think a lot of people who see Waymo in the streets don't fully understand, like the vertical integration from like building the robotaxi to like getting all the data, all the cameras, to charging it, to cleaning it, to the consumer relationship directly.
Yep. And I think there's a few layers of like Tesla's advantage. I mean, obviously I'm kind of biased. I think you are too. Tesla investors, not Waymo or Google investors.
That's
so
true.
Bit biased.
Yeah, super biased.
I think we have good reasons.
And that's like why we're biased, because we think it's the better.
And let's walk through those reasons. So what you said about the vertical integration, I think plays out huge in cost. So the first thing is Tesla's always really good at manufacturing. So their cost to build this vehicle is maybe $25,000, including the hardware. Waymo, let's even say they're $75,000. Give it like a massive benefit of the doubt. like that's still like the biggest cost chunk of the vehicle probably.
Yeah.
So that's already like a loss. Waymo doesn't build their own charging infrastructure. So, and every EV doesn't seem to charge as efficiently as like, I feel like Tesla building their own charging infrastructure is going to charge better. And, you know, they don't have to buy charging infrastructure from someone else with a margin. So that's another layer to it. Like this cleaning robot. Like,
I also think like something that's not talked about is like these Tesla supercharger stations having like solar on them and like batteries and like generating their own energy. Like that is a huge advantage when one of the biggest costs then for driving this is like compute and energy, and all of a sudden you're getting your energy costs lower and lower, and you're the one that's taking energy and just giving it right to your vehicles.
That's true. So I feel like and it's crazy because, should we just pause it?
Yeah.
Who's calling us right now? Oh, that's crazy. It's Sundar Pichai.
He's like, cut the line.
No, but I feel like, I don't know. So Elon's kind of been hyping up this moment of like the fleet becomes awake, and like I'm curious, and I kind of want to like open this up to the people watching and Aiden, and it's like, all right, what's your scheme on how fast does like Tesla, like when does Tesla pass Waymo?
Yeah, I think
in terms of like
rides and execution and cars on the road.
Because Waymo is booming, and I actually like, that's the other thing. It's like I don't want to hate on Waymo because, like you said, like the service is amazing.
Yeah.
They literally launched a self-driving car. Like that is dope. But
it is funny though, because like when I talk to people about self-driving cars and how bullish I am on Tesla, and people talk about Waymo already doing it, I'm like, you guys don't get it. Like Tesla's going to come out with like, you know, so much scale, and like they're doing it in such a different way. But I think that's the question is like what's that going to look like? Like, are we talking about, you know, millions of rides in 2026? Are we talking about like tens of thousands? Are we like, how many cities are they going to go in at once? You know, like what is the rollout actually going to be like in reality? And it feels like we'll start to see early signs of it in a few months here in Austin.
Totally.
But like it'll be like Waymo's been so deliberate managing it, and it feels like Tesla might be a bit like ready to just go. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, but I'm curious what you kind of think, because that's how the stock is priced. It's kind of like, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of Cybercabs on the road, like,
totally,
next year.
And I don't feel like the like manufacturing ability is actually going to hold them back. Like I don't think that's what's stopping them. Like I think there's only like 800 Waymos on the road doing like 100 million in revenue, something like insanely small.
Oh, interesting.
So I feel like the Tesla is like, they might be able to produce a lot, but this whole idea of like rolling it out slowly, like Tesla hasn't been the best at like kind of like buttoning up consumer services. Like when you get your car, like maybe they've changed this, but when you get your Tesla, it's like almost just like you get your car and it's like, oh my God, like you don't even, like there's no like walkthrough of all like the epic features. Like I feel like Tesla is a very engineering, like super lean and engineering focused company, less of like a extremely luxury consumer brand. Like even though their cars are a luxury like product, and they seem kind of like, could be like the Gucci or Apple or something of the car industry, like part of me feels like sometimes the consumer touch is a bit unpolished. Like with FSD, you know, it's like FSD will be ready, and like it's like now it's ready for the masses, now it's ready for the masses, and then like I'll use it and it might like a lot of people when the FSD trial came out like got spooked because it did like a little wrong turn or did something wacky, and then like that actually spooked them, and they like haven't used FSD for a while. And I'm not talking about like Tesla kind of like nerds, but more like mainstream people. So I think that's like a really kind of like fine line that Tesla's walking that Waymo's done super well, and why they've gone so slow. It's like Tesla's really gonna have to like perfect every ride. And it's not just about being safer than a human driver, but it's the perception that the rider has of the safety. Like, okay, yeah, like the car's like wiggling, you know? Like, okay, like it's not really dangerous, and like maybe Tesla's saying it's still safe, but like if I'm in the car and it like does a quick lane change that I wasn't expecting, like I'm like, whoa, like what's happening? And I lose trust, and it's a shitty consumer experience. So like those are the kind of things that I would be very wary about, is like, it has to like, is like, you don't want, this is the like the worst business to like rush and not triple check on.
Do you feel like FSD is ready?
Well, I feel like it's very close to ready, but in my car, which is a 4-year-old hardware 3 Model Y, so that kind of gets me to be like, honestly, like the cars they're building now, it's actually 5 years old. It's the 2020 car, so the cars they're building 5 years later with a brand new chip, like and a new camera, like probably going to be way better than my car, which is already learning and crushing it, but still not perfect. So,
but compared to like FSD a few years ago, when we ran through that stop sign, to like FSD now, which like that felt better than the Waymo.
Yeah, it was like insanely
It was
good.
a huge difference. And the thing about Waymo too is like you can't go on the highway with Waymos yet. I'm pretty sure. So and then like
I think they're changing that slowly.
Yeah,
but
maybe changing that slowly. And I think you can't do things like go to the airport still and things like that. Maybe you said something
too chaotic.
Yeah, you maybe said about Waymos and
I thought
going
in
to the Phoenix airport.
But I don't know. It's like up in the air, and I feel like it's like every day there's like a new route that's unlocked or something.
Yeah.
So
I'm just super curious. Like, I feel like so much of Tesla stock, like you said at the beginning of this, is priced in on the Cybercab success. And the question that I think a lot of us are asking is like, are we going to see like thousands of rides by the end of this year and like tens of thousands next year? Are we going to see like hundreds of thousands? Like how just like kind of like, okay, this flipped this switch, like we're just rolling out a massive Cybercab service? Is Elon trying to go? Or are they going to be a little bit more methodical like Waymo? Or do you feel like the methodicalness has been like all the work that they've been working on with FSD for the last 6 years since they've been talking about it, that now that's done, now the Cybercab is ready, they feel like it's just get out as much as possible and blitz scale the market?
I think like it's a little bit in between, because it's also like, I think it's crazy that they launched FSD beta and like we're letting people like me and Omar just like drive around on this like beta software.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was crazy. Like
Yeah.
and like we paid for it and it was beta and we knew it and we're not like, but it was like, I was like, holy shit, like
My life's on
this
the
is
line.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Not even like my life's on the line, but like how cool is this? That,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I get to
yeah.
like try this like crazy technology like that's kind of not ready. But
Yeah.
like and they're letting me do it. Like that was wild. So I think it's a totally new thing when you're going from like Tesla fans who like understand it and want it to succeed and are dabbling with it, from like a nerdy tech person playing with a toy that they've been researching forever, versus like people who just want to get in and go and be like smooth AF. And I think Waymo's really good at that. Like Waymo, every time I've been in the ride, it's really smooth and like good. So I think Tesla needs to nail that. And I guess I'm trying not, maybe it seems like I'm like a little bit like not bearish on Tesla, but I'm playing devil's advocate now. But I feel like that's because I'm trying to poke holes in it, because it feels like in the long run, it's so in the bag. It's like they have the manufacturing advantage. Like they're having more data advantage because they have the drivers. Like people are paying them for the miles. Like it just seems like, they have their own chip they built. Like this, if this whole camera system works, it's just so much simpler and cheaper than Waymo. Like it just feels like Waymo's done. Like their cost structure isn't 20% higher, isn't 30% higher, it's 300% higher.
How do you
so they're just done in the long term. It's like Tesla's bag to fumble, like by going too fast and messing it up.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a good point. How do you think people are going to order these Teslas? Like, do you think it's going to be through a Tesla app and everyone's going to download it? Do you think it's going to be through X? Like, how do you?
I think it's Tesla app. Like that's what they're saying, and that's like always been the scheme. And I've even read some article that they're like implementing code into the Tesla app that like is like indicative of like starting to like this ride hailing thing on like future versions of the app or whatever. So they've already said that, I'm pretty sure, in the shareholder letter. Like they have pictures of it. When I went to Autonomy Day in 2019, they had the Tesla app that you called the car with, like the engineers did to do it. So I think that's always been the kind of like, North Star for them.
Well, it's just, just to like wrap things up, it's just crazy that it's February now, we'll come back in, basically a few months and Cybercab will be on the road, and this whole crazy vision that Tesla's been promising for 6-7 years about FSD is like finally here. And then this will be like kind of like a battleground early on in like the kind of robo-taxi between like Waymo and Cybercab. So I wouldn't be surprised here if you start to see like kind of a rapid increase in the market of self-driving cars in Austin, the techno capital of the world, as they kind of like try to win over the consumer. Like it's happening here, not in like SF, which I think is interesting. Like the Tesla is launching their Cybercab service here. So
Dude, so bullish on Austin.
Yeah.
And we love Austin. And I was like, we all know we're getting hyped on Austin. But then I'm like, I've already been thinking about it, chilling in Austin, seeing the Waymos go around, like Cybercab's launching. It's like, dude, like this is going to be the first battleground city. Like this is going to, and they're like, it's going to become like this. And like self-driving cars are going to be in Austin. It's going to be amazing for the city. It's going to be an economic boom. And it's going to change transportation in Austin and like change what it means. I think it's the start of like the new, boomtown, this new Silicon Valley, this new super city, the Austin metropolitan area, and this battleground of self-driving cars is going to like be a transformative era for all cities, but like Austin feels like the first one in 4 months, which is just like so exciting. I feel like so epic.
And consumers win. Like, you're going to come here and be able to get a Cybercab from the airport to come into town. There's going to be all these self-driving cars everywhere. You're going to see these companies just competing super hard. And then all of a sudden it's going to make like self-driving cars ubiquitous a lot faster. So.
And is it Uber versus, this is like trying to wrap it up kind of, but like one thing that we thought in our first Waymo is it was like, is it Waymo versus Tesla versus Waymo, or is it just like them versus everyone else? Like how many miles driven on the road have a human with human cognition operating that vehicle? Like 99.99999% of miles or whatever. Now it's about to like, that's gonna like, but it's like disrupted. Like when you're in the Waymo, you're like, oh my God, like this idea of human cognition driving the car is like, I'm literally in the dinosaur era right now. Like that's who's toast. Like GM, Volkswagen, like Rivian, like every car company that just has not figured out, like relies and is built around a human operator and the structure that you have to buy a 60G or whatever car and own it and figure out how to park it and pay insurance on it and all that bullshit. Like that is a whole system that is about to just evaporate overnight. And like that's the disruption. Like, you know what I mean? Like those people die way before Waymo dies, is my theory. Is like, I don't know. So that's kind of when I think about like,
but there's still
where this is going. It's just, that's the real trend we're talking about is like humans, like human cognition versus now AI cognition taking over, saving billions of hours of human time and stress and focus as well. Like it's going to be, yeah, I think that's like the tidal wave change.
Yeah, and I think it changes the economy fundamentally. This is something that Elon talks a lot about, is how a car is something you maybe use 10 or 15% of the time, but 85% of the time it's sitting idle, and it could be an asset, so it's going to change car ownership. All of a sudden, all that money that you were spending on owning a car and your lease and your insurance, you no longer have to do. So you're going to funnel that to other aspects of the economy to spend in other places, freeing up the consumer. So it just like, it's going to have massive effects on the economy. And a lot of people are trying to predict like how that it's going to change things, but it's going to have a big effect, whether it's like car insurance, how people buy cars, to all these car companies that have been around, since the beginning. It's going to change a lot.
Like real estate, like how hard is it to get somewhere?
But the question is how much it's going to change. I mean, not how much, how fast it's going to change. I think that's what we're trying to figure out. And I think the most exciting part is we'll have a good line of sight of that, in the second half of this year, pretty much, early next year, how quickly this transportation revolution is going to happen.
And it cracks me up because so much of this like kind of comes to like Elon's decision. Like where does he want to price it? Like does he want, like Tesla's got huge cash, they have the cost advantage. How fast does he want to roll out? Does he want to come in, like Waymo's chosen to go over Uber. Does he want to come in and go 30% under Uber right away and like just entrench themselves and dominate and get more data and like win? Or is he gonna like it's
how
up
slow
to
does
him.
he want to do the rollout?
Yeah, and like I think the pricing is literally like they can decide. They have so much leeway on pricing that I'm like super curious to see how that all comes out. And like
what's interesting is they can keep the price low if they do enough rides too. Like that's how they beat Uber too. Right, it's like they can make up for it.
With optimization,
because they can just it can do like ride go 24/7, where an Uber driver can't. They don't have to pay the Uber driver, so it can really make up for it, especially with the cost being so low to produce these things.
Like in theory, I think in the long run, it's like imagine getting an Uber, 24/7 whenever you wanted for like 50% the cost. Is what I would say.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a little like even cheaper than that, but I think it's somewhere around that ballpark, which is it's going to be a game changer for the whole economy.
Totally.
And Uber even put that in their like investor deck, like the TAM of like, we only do this much of rides of all people driving, but like the second it gets cheaper, it's about to be all of rides. But it's like, that's not Uber that's going to do that.
It's one of the paradoxes. It's one of the paradoxes, right? Like you think the cost lowering would like change, but it's actually going to increase how many people use it.
Totally. And before we go, what's your take on Uber in all this? Like, does Uber get lost in the sauce? Eventually, it feels like without owning any technology, Uber's, besides the network, Uber doesn't have much of value. But I also like don't want to discount them out because they're also like in the middle of this like hodgepodge of disruption. Like they're partnering with Waymo.
I mean, in my opinion, like if I'm Waymo, it's like I use Uber when I need you, which is immediately to get distribution and have people start to use my service and like do the offering. But soon as like people are just using Waymo and there's like so much demand and the brand is like way larger and they're everywhere, like why can't I just slash Uber out of the picture? Like why am I paying an extra fees? So I see them as something like using them early on, but then once they're at like size and scale, you just kind of like the partnership is over, and then Uber is kind of like basically a dead company.
Yeah,
that's just how I see it playing out. But I don't know.
So 2025, start of the robotaxi era. We don't know exactly how it's going to change, but everything is going to change, and we think Tesla is like in the long run positioned to dominate this and kind of set off a tidal wave of change. Like they're going to make Waymo run. Like I think it's going to, like, I don't know. I just feel like this, it's hard to wrap my head around it because I haven't seen the Cybercab. I haven't taken one yet, but I feel like June, Austin, 2025, like that's a moment. That's a crazy moment for humanity.
Maybe let's end with predictions.
Okay, yeah.
So why don't we do, I'm thinking predictions of Cybercab rides in this year and next year.
I think if Tesla can do 1 million Cybercab rides, that would be like crushing it.
Next year?
In this year.
This year.
That would be like crushing it. Because Waymo did 4 million last year across 3 cities. Tesla wants to go to multiple cities. They want to go faster. Like, I'm kind of feeling good about this, million number if they crush it.
What do you think?
Like, that's bull case.
What
Like,
about
bear
26?
case is like 100,000.
Okay, so.
But then in 2026, I think is the year when they crush Waymo. And like Waymo maybe goes to like 15 million rides, but Tesla's scaled to like 30 million rides. Like I think, I don't know, sometime in 2026, like it's gonna happen fast. Tesla's gonna,
wow.
if we're right with what we think is gonna happen and like everything's going well, like obviously lots of caveats, but.
Interesting. Okay.
What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be a bit more conservative. I think 100,000 rides this year.
Okay.
And I think 3 million rides next year. And then I could see what you're saying. Like in 27, maybe it's like 30 to 50 million, like a massive step function increase.
Like 2026, end of 2026, 27 is gonna be crazy. Like
Yeah.
volume production of Cybercab,
like that's when you
is
start
tens of thousands at least, and that's
way bigger than
Waymo.
Waymo fleet. Yeah.
So like Tesla's telling you that by mid 2026, like Waymo's fleet is gonna look like a joke.
Totally. So that's
Maybe
why,
they're optimistic.
That's why I see like the 100,000 to like the like 3 million number. Because that's still a massive jump,
Totally,
and you're still working on a lot of kinks and the cleaning and the charging and how that all works. But then, like once that's ready, it's just like a complete scale thing, and it can really it becomes everywhere in 27.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at.
So let us know your prediction in the comments below. Brews, and Big Ideas. Hope y'all enjoyed. Cheers.